Hashtag Fundamentals of Traditional Chinese Medicine Introduction. Alright, let's get straight to it. The introduction addresses 4 questions. First, what is traditional Chinese medicine? Second, what are the academic characteristics of TCM? Third, what is the basic framework of TCM fundamental theory? And fourth, the historical development of TCM, a brief history. The 4th point is just a passing mention. You'll have a separate medical history course. The focus is on the key characteristics of the TCM theoretical system. But I may come back to this after we cover philosophy, because tackling it directly without groundwork makes it hard to grasp. So what is TCM? The textbook says it originated in ancient China. That gives us 2 coordinates: geography, China, time, antiquity. But these 2 aren't enough. That just makes it a time-based medicine plus a region-based medicine. It doesn't hit the mark. I'll add 1 sentence. It is built upon the foundation of traditional Chinese culture. To put it bluntly, TCM is, in essence, a cultural medicine. Is TCM easy to learn? For words, easy to pick up, hard to master. Easy, from the perspective of passing exams and mastering textbook content, TCM is no harder than Western medicine. Hard, the problem lies in those 2 words. Culture. Think about it. From childhood through high school, how many days did we actually spend learning Chinese culture? Very few. Don't assume that learning the Chinese language means you've learned Chinese culture. At the turn of the last century, science and democracy came in, classical Chinese was replaced by vernacular, and Confucianism was attacked. There was a progressive side to this, but the side effects were also glaring. Anything related to traditional Chinese learning seemed to become insubstantial, faded. There's an even more fitting word for it now: fleeting clouds. Traditional Chinese learning was treated almost like passing clouds. The reason China is called China is because of Chinese culture. When the cultural roots are gone, what suffers the most? I can't speak for other fields, but TCM is certainly among them. The main body of TCM originated in ancient times. Today's textbooks are ancient texts translated into modern Chinese. Translation has its benefits. It's systematic, organized, and easier to learn. But every translation involves a loss of information. The TCM textbook you're reading now is not the original flavor. When you finish your 5-year program and want to go deeper, you'll still have to return to the original texts. But after the vernacular movement, our ability to read classical texts has declined. There's another layer. TCM is a cultural medicine, so it demands a strong background in ancient culture. Most of us, beyond a few poems, a few CI verses, and a few prose essays, have basically zero foundation in ancient culture. That's why I say it's hard. And this also points you in a direction. Mastering the textbook isn't enough. To truly learn TCM, you have to eventually read the original texts. TCM has 2 core characteristics. The first is the holistic concept. TCM's way of viewing the human body is very different from Western medicine. Western medicine zooms in, it looks at the microscopic. TCM zooms out, it looks at the whole. When you have a local illness, TCM certainly pays attention to the lesion, but its first step is to place that illness back into the whole that is you as a person. What state are you in within that whole? That's still not enough. Human beings exist between heaven and earth. You also have to place the person into the larger system of nature and the cosmos. How do you examine this? 2 dimensions are the most intuitive. Time, the 4 seasons, day and night, dawn and dusk. If you have a fever, is it higher in the morning or the afternoon? TCM has a view on this. It matters. Space, east, south, west, north. For the same fever, south versus north, the temperature is different. This also affects diagnosis. That is the holistic concept. The second is pattern differentiation and treatment. Why do we call it pattern differentiation and not disease differentiation? Western medicine treats diseases, and TCM treats diseases too. But TCM's focus falls more on the concept of pattern. Take the simplest example, the common cold. Cold is a disease. But when you go to a TCM hospital, the doctor won't be satisfied just telling you, you have a cold. He will differentiate. Do you have a wind cold type? Or a wind heat type? Or wind cold with dampness? 3 cold patients, 3 different states, all called a cold, and the treatment for each is completely different. Simply put, same disease, different treatment depending on the person. TCM speaks of the Zang-Fu organs: heart, liver, spleen, lung, kidney. You learned about them in middle school biology. Pay attention. The heart, liver, spleen, lung, and kidney in TCM share the same names as those in Western medicine, but their connotations are partly the same and partly different. They are not identical. Which is more correct? Hard to say. Different systems. Each is self-consistent within its own framework. Let me give you an analogy. Climbing a mountain. You take the main road, I take a winding trail, both can reach the summit. The scenery along the way is different. You can't claim that only what you see is correct. After all, it's the same mountain, and many landscapes are shared. The difference lies in method. TCM zooms out, Western medicine zooms in. Also, the meridians and collaterals. This is something modern medicine simply doesn't have. We'll talk more about it when we get to that chapter. One more thing. In recent years, wellness culture has become very popular, and wellness books are almost all based on TCM. Wellness is not aimed at disease, it's aimed at the pre-disease state, the state of life, the state of health. TCM has its own complete system in this regard, with rules and routines, easy to explain and easy to practice. The fundamentals of TCM are divided into 4 major blocks. Philosophical foundation, using ancient philosophy to organize experience and systematize it, corresponding to Yin-Yang, the 5 elements, and so on. The normal human body, what a normal person is like, corresponding to visceral manifestation, qi, blood, body fluids, meridians, and constitution. Understanding disease, why people get sick and how they get sick, corresponding to etiology, pathogenesis, and disease mechanisms. Principles of prevention and treatment, how to cultivate health and how to treat disease. The philosophical foundation, to put it simply, using ancient philosophy as a tool, stringing together scattered medical experience into a coherent system so you can learn it. The most difficult thing about TCM fundamentals, it's not that the knowledge points are hard to memorize. It's that the concepts are hard to accept. Think about it. From childhood, we've been trained in a Western-style scientific mode of thinking. Studying math, physics, and chemistry isn't difficult at all, because there's no conceptual conflict. You just need to remember or not remember. But TCM's system of thought is a different thing entirely. The ancients thought about problems in this way, and we, as Chinese people, somehow never learned it. In recent years, with the Guoxue revival and shows like Lecture Room, some people say the content is too shallow. But even shallow, at least it has popularized things. Ordinary people don't need to be too specialized. A general understanding is enough. For you, I only ask one thing. Follow along and slowly get used to this way of thinking. Gradually move from unfamiliarity to familiarity. I'm not going to start by urging you to cultivate an interest in learning. That's correct nonsense. If you find it interesting, you'll naturally be interested. If you don't, you naturally won't be. It's not something I can talk you into. Reference books, 2 are enough. First, the Companion Question Bank. The one edited by the same chief editor as the textbook. It's not that the exam will follow this. It's that as you work through it, you'll discover the gaps in your learning. The question volume is enormous, overwhelming. Master it, and you'll have absorbed roughly 80 to 90% of the knowledge points in this book. The knowledge points, no problem. The concepts, we'll talk about that next time. Second, a dictionary. If you have money, buy the Comprehensive Dictionary of Chinese Medicine. If not, get the Concise Dictionary of Chinese Medicine. It's a reference tool. Having one is better than not. A lot of people are in a hurry. Should I start reading the Huangdi Neijing right now? The Shanghan Luan? I'm not opposed, but I suggest you wait a year or so. Right now, your foundation in TCM knowledge is 0. Start reading now, you'll spend 50 minutes and have no idea what you just read. Wait until you've studied for a year or 2 and built a foundation, then go back and read it and you'll get it in 5 minutes. Reading it now is not worth the effort. Most of the passages cited in the textbook come from the Huangdi Neijing. Don't rush to memorize every line. The passages are there to help you understand the content. Unless the teacher explicitly emphasizes and requires it, Don't worry about it. You'll have dedicated courses on the Neijing and the Shanghanluan later. Read them then. The academic attributes of TCM. The textbook's classification is a bit cumbersome. Let me give you my version. Natural science. TCM studies human beings, and human beings are material. TCM also places human beings within nature and the cosmos, and nature and the cosmos are also material. Therefore, TCM is first and foremost a natural science. Social science. Human beings have psychology and sociality. Psychology, by current disciplinary classification, falls under social science, not natural science. So a medicine that studies human beings cannot avoid touching on the social sciences. The same goes for Western medicine. But in TCM, there's an extra component, philosophy. In other disciplines, philosophy hides in the background. In TCM, philosophy is openly placed on the table. So TCM's social science component is proportionally larger than that of a typical natural science. Also larger than Western medicine. If you ask me to estimate, probably a 70-30 split. Don't hold me to it. And then the old question arises. Is TCM scientific? I won't rush to judge. Let's wait until you've learned enough. But let me tell you one thing first. Everyone who claims TCM is unscientific is basically using the standards of pure natural science to measure TCM. And the narrowest kind within it, reductive analytical science. The problem is, TCM has never claimed to be a pure natural science. You're measuring me with a small ruler, and all I can say is you've picked up the wrong ruler. Basic discipline plus applied discipline. A basic discipline answers 3 words, why? An applied discipline also answers 3 words, what to do. TCM has both, with a greater emphasis on application. Western medicine is an experimental science. First a hypothesis, then verification, then forming a theory, then applying it in the clinic. TCM is the reverse. Clinical experience comes first, and then it is synthesized upward into theory. That's exactly how our textbook came to be. Look at Western medicine. Its basic disciplines are numerous: anatomy, physiology, pathology, histology and embryology, microbiology, parasitology. TCM has just this one book. You might ask, how much can one book carry? Seems a bit thin. But you also can't say it's insufficient. Here we touch on something very fundamental to TCM, Dao and Li. What is Dao? Laozi said, "The Dao that can be spoken is not the eternal Dao. What can be clearly explained is not the Dao." If I have to describe it at 70 to 80%, Dao is the essence and the laws of nature and the cosmos. What is Li? Li is concrete things. For example, the function of a particular cell, that is Li. Modern natural science deals with very concretely. How does TCM operate? It uses the Tao of heaven to infer the Tao of humanity. First, find the great laws of nature and the cosmos. Once found, use the great laws to deduce the small laws. The small laws follow the great laws. Li obeys Tao. Therefore, TCM is a study of Tao. And because of this, studying TCM requires a certain whooshing perceptive intuition. What does whooshing mean? The great laws are told to you. The small ones you deduce for yourself. There's no need to list every last detail. Listing every last detail, that's the Western way of thinking. The problem is, many of us have gotten used to that mode. Take it slowly. Adjust gradually. By the way, here's a thought. Look at karate do, taekwondo, they're all called do, Dao. Our thing is called wushu, martial shu, technique. Something so profound and vast is called mere technique. How is it supposed to make an impact beyond Asia? Call it Wu Dao, martial Dao. How much grander that sounds. We didn't even get the name right. I don't expect that after one lecture you'll feel TCM is scientific. I have no such expectation. I only hope that you follow along, slowly get used to this way of thinking, and gradually move from unfamiliarity to familiarity. TCM is, in essence, a cultural medicine. Alright, let's take a break.